This is BBC World News. I'm Geetha Gurmurthy with the latest headlines for you. The government in Nepal is coming under increased criticism over its perceived failure to manage the distribution of relief supplies. And police in the US city of Baltimore say a night curfew imposed to quell rioting has largely worked, despite defiance from hundreds of protesters. Now, emergency aid is starting to reach remote mountain communities near the epicentre of Nepal's devastating earthquake, but the government is coming under increased criticism over its perceived failure to manage the distribution of relief supplies. Well, one of the aid groups working in Kathmandu is Action Aid International. Tom Allen is their international head of campaigns and joins us from the capital. Thanks for joining us. Do you think it is fair to blame the government, or is this just too huge a task?
It absolutely is a huge task. People here are tired, they're hungry and they're afraid. The aftershocks have stopped pretty much. Yesterday, I think, was the last one, but people are still sleeping outside. Many of the houses are just devastated, just gone. And many of the others have so many cracks that it's very difficult to feel safe if you go back into them. So the majority of people are sleeping in parks. The government's actually opened up the Royal Palace. And the army's helping build them shelters there. And obviously there's a lot of aid agencies here trying to provide shelter for them as well.
What are the biggest challenges facing you? I mean, how many people have you got on the ground and whereabouts? Are you in the capital? Are you outside the capital?
I am sat in our office in Kathmandu. We've identified that the worst hit area for us was Sindhu Palchuk, where 98% of houses have been flattened. We're planning to reach 4,430 households in that area. And we're, as well as distributing clean water, food, basic first aid, and materials for shelter, we're also now trying to find tools to help people rebuild their homes. Because that's the real issue, that we need to have a long-term approach here and ensure that people are actually going to be safe and secure in the long term.
How are you actually reaching people? Is it through helicopter drops, or because the roads are also blocked, aren't they?
Yeah, the roads are bad in many areas. Certainly in the areas I visited yesterday, the houses obviously have just fallen into the roads. There's masonry and wood scattered all over the place. But the army's been helping to clear them. People are obviously doing that themselves as well, but it's a very slow process. So the roads in the centre of Kathmandu are fine, but we are sort of finding ways to get through effectively using 4x4s and using, basically just using initiative to try and get things across.
Can you just give me an idea of how much of the country, how many of the villages do you think have not been reached yet? Because I've been in touch with someone who's very worried about their family on the Tibet border, and they're terrified because so many houses have been flattened. Their parents survived the earthquake, but they need food and water and somewhere to sleep.
Absolutely, I think that's the key issue here. In the city centres, in Kathmandu at least, we're finding it's relatively easy to support the people in the city. But as I said, we've identified Sindhu Palchuk as one of the worst hit areas, and none of the aid agencies have reached that yet. So we're going there tomorrow with lots of supplies. For anybody with relatives or people in the rural areas, I think, the message is just, hold tight, and I hope that we will be able to get through there. On the kind of positive side, when I came in on Monday from China, the airplane was full of search and rescue teams, and I think they're doing some very progressive and positive stuff to reach the harder to get to communities as well. Yeah,
China and India are playing sort of huge roles, obviously, in this. How is it being coordinated with so many governments and aid agencies offering help here?
So far, the coordination has been very strong, actually. As you come into the airport, you're greeted by the UN. The issue really at the moment is getting the materials and the supplies. The local markets are running out of, the basics like tarpaulin, food. Clean water is such an issue because obviously the quake has affected the sewerage, so that's leaking. And the main thing is we're worried about heavy rain, which could spread disease and cause further erosion of the buildings here.
So it's just days, really, to try and get the essentials in. I mean, when people are watching this and they think, OK, I'm donating money, how long before your cash donation translates into something on the ground? Because people need these supplies, don't they? You can't survive without water for very long.
It's immediate. So we have an emergency fund, and we've released £100,000 of that immediately, and we've already spent quite a significant part of that on the food and clean water supplies going out to people. But obviously, it fundamentally does come down to the financial resources. So the DEC appeal is extremely helpful because it means we'll be getting the necessary money to buy more resources to support people here. And we've been working